I'm Dr. Zain Hakeem. I work in Austin, Texas at River Rock Medical Clinic. It's my own concierge medical practice. I'm board certified in internal medicine and pediatrics. And you have found one of my Einkorn wheat videos. Einkorn sourdough is a passion of mine, and I've made a few videos detailing some recipes that I have not been able to find anywhere else on the internet. I had to make a lot of it up myself. So you might be wondering, how did a doctor end up getting started with baking or using wheat or making recipe videos? And the story of that is basically related to my own health journey and the health journey of some of my patients. The keto diet is very popular. I was keto myself for almost 2 years and gradually stopped getting the benefits of weight loss and improved endurance and metabolic flexibility that I had gotten at the early part of the diet. And as I looked into it, I started switching to more of a paleo type diet. And several of my patients had been going through something similar. And the question became on paleo, how many grains are allowed, or are grains allowed? And the general consensus seemed to be no, and that seemed to resonate with the experience of myself and some of my patients of not doing well on grains. And yet we all missed bread. There was something really deeply connecting about bread and even pasta to a degree. And so I started wondering, what's the healthiest version of bread? And as I started doing more and more research, I realized that there was a particular type of wheat called Einkorn wheat that seemed to defy some of the paleo logic. It actually co-evolved with humans. It was present before we were. We domesticated it, but we didn't change it. We hadn't modified it. It was something that was a part of our diet, apparently even predating agriculture, predating the time when human beings settled down into settled societies and began farming. This wheat was still part of our diet. And we found that out through an interesting case, the case of Otzi the Iceman. This was a mummified human, Homo sapiens, dated about 15,000 years ago, who had eaten a meal just before he died. A bit of a sad story, actually. He'd gotten into an altercation in a village, apparently, and had gotten into a fight, been injured, and escaped and tried to make a run for it, and had been chased by presumably members of that village. It was a long chase. He was injured, as I said, and ultimately was murdered, killed by an arrow, but his corpse was preserved in ice. And interestingly, he had eaten a meal, as I said, just before his death, and the contents of that meal were still in his stomach. So we actually got direct evidence of what essentially a caveman 15,000 years ago was eating. It was ibex, which is a type of goat meat, some herbs, which we think might have been medicinal, and einkorn wheat. And that really opened my eyes to the idea that maybe the paleo concept we had wasn't correct, that maybe wheat was a pretty fundamental part of the evolving human diet. But maybe not modern wheat. Maybe the devil was in the details. Maybe the problems with wheat were associated with modern processing, modern methods, and modern wheat. And so I went back and started making recipes only with einkorn wheat, and only sprouted einkorn wheat. I use a sourdough method, and I talk about the details of all the health implications of doing things this way and all the practical implications of doing things this way, because einkorn can be difficult to work with. So I hope you enjoy this video. I hope it gives you something valuable, and I hope it shows how the details of what we eat, the details of how we make what we eat, can have profound implications on our health.